Close your eyes and transport yourself to a world where honor means everything, a world so unforgiving that a single glance could seal your fate. Welcome to Feudal Japan, a realm where warriors known as samurai ruled with blades of steel and hearts of unbending iron. Would you have had the courage to survive in this extraordinary era? Between the 12th and 19th centuries, Japan was not just a country, it was a living, breathing epic of warrior culture. Imagine a land dominated by an elite warrior class, the samurai, who pledged absolute loyalty to the shoguns, the true puppet masters pulling the strings behind the imperial throne. But this was far more than a simple story of battles and conquests. This was a civilization that transformed warfare into an art form, philosophy into a way of life. A society where every movement, every decision was governed by an intricate code of honor so profound that death was often considered a more acceptable option than dishonor. Think about that for a moment. In a world where your reputation could be more precious than your very breath, where a single misstep could mean total social destruction or ritual suicide, how would you have navigated these treacherous waters? The samurai weren't just warriors. They were poets, philosophers, artists, and strategists. Their world was a complex tapestry woven with threads of martial prowess, spiritual discipline, and cultural refinement. From the razor-sharp edge of their katanas to the delicate brushstrokes of their poetry, these warriors embodied a complexity that continues to fascinate us centuries later. Are you a history lover? Do you want to unravel the secrets of the world's most legendary warriors? Then buckle up. This journey into the heart of feudal Japan will reveal stories of extraordinary courage, breathtaking strategy, and a culture so unique it defies imagination. Hit that subscribe button on the Medieval Archives, ring the notification bell, and prepare yourself for an adventure into one of history's most mesmerizing civilizations. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this incredible story. Imagine a way of life so powerful, so absolute, that it could transform an ordinary human into something beyond mortality. This was Bushido, the way of the warrior, a code so sacred that it literally meant everything to the samurai. But Bushido was far more than just a set of rules. It was a spiritual philosophy, a moral compass that guided every single breath, every single action of these legendary warriors. Lealtad, loyalty, honor, and self-discipline weren't just words. They were the very oxygen these warriors breathed. Picture this. A young samurai stands at the edge of a battlefield, knowing that failure is not just unacceptable, it's a fate worse than death itself. And I mean that quite literally. If a samurai failed in his mission, he didn't just face punishment, he faced the most extreme form of redemption imaginable, seppuku, the ritual suicide that would restore his honor. Let that sink in for a moment. In a culture where honor was everything, these warriors believed that dying with dignity was far more important than living with shame. A single moment of weakness, a single misstep could mean the difference between a life of respect and a death that would cleanse one's family name. The Bushido Code was brutally simple, yet profoundly complex. It demanded absolute loyalty, not just to a lord, but to an ideal. A samurai's word was his bond, stronger than any written contract, more binding than any legal document. Imagine a world where your personal honor was your most valuable possession, more precious than gold, more important than life itself. This wasn't just about being a good warrior. This was about being a complete human being. The samurai were expected to master not just the art of war, but the art of living. They were philosophers, poets, artists. They studied calligraphy with the same intensity they studied swordsmanship. They composed delicate haiku poems with the same precision they used to wield their katanas. The 7 virtues of Bushido, rectitude, courage, benevolence, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty, weren't just abstract concepts. They were a lived reality. A samurai who failed to embody these virtues was considered less than human, a disgrace to his entire lineage. Think about that level of commitment. In a world of compromise, the samurai lived by an uncompromising code. Their entire existence was a testament to discipline, to the belief that true strength comes not from physical power, but from inner control. Bushido wasn't just a warrior's code. It was a philosophy of life that continues to fascinate and inspire people around the world to this day. A reminder that true strength is about more than just physical might. It's about the power of the human spirit. So are you ready to dive deeper into the world of the samurai? Because trust me, this is just the beginning of an incredible journey. Picture a world where the most powerful person isn't the one wearing the crown, but the one pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Welcome to Feudal Japan, where the emperors were nothing more than beautiful, ornate puppets, and the real power resided with the shoguns, the ultimate masters of manipulation and control. The shogun wasn't just a leader. He was a political genius, a strategic mastermind who controlled every aspect of Japanese society with an iron grip that would make modern dictators look like amateurs. And no shogun embodied this absolute power more dramatically than Tokugawa Ieyasu, the man who would change the course of Japanese history forever. Imagine emerging from centuries of constant warfare, of endless battles that had torn the country apart. Then comes Tokugawa Ieyasu, a leader so brilliant, so ruthless, that he managed to unify an entire nation that had been bleeding itself dry for generations. But here's the truly mind-blowing part. His method of control was as ingenious as it was terrifying. How do you maintain absolute power? You don't just control the battlefield, you control everything, and I mean everything. Tokugawa's government was so restrictive that he literally banned Japanese people from leaving the country. And this wasn't just a gentle suggestion. This was a decree backed by the ultimate threat: death. Think about that for a moment. An entire nation, locked within its borders under the complete control of a single ruling class. The shoguns created a system so perfect, so meticulously controlled, that it would remain unchanged for over 260 years. That's longer than the United States has been a country. But wait, it gets even more fascinating. These shoguns weren't just about political control, they were cultural architects. Want to know something truly incredible? They actually banned firearms to preserve the traditional samurai fighting style. In an era when most of the world was embracing new military technologies, the shoguns were essentially telling progress to take a step back. Now, I've got a question for you. If you could travel back in time, would you choose to be a samurai, bound by an unbreakable code of honor, ready to die at a moment's notice? Or would you be a shogun, the puppet master pulling the strings, controlling an entire nation from the shadows? Hit that like button, share this video, and drop a comment below. Tell me, samurai or shogun, which would you choose in the brutal, fascinating world of feudal Japan? The power was never with the emperor. The real rulers were always the shoguns, masters of strategy, architects of an empire, controllers of destiny. Imagine a warrior standing on a battlefield, blood-stained sword in one hand and a delicate writing brush in the other. This wasn't a contradiction. This was the essence of the samurai. These weren't just fighters. They were artists, philosophers, poets who could transform the brutality of war into the most breathtaking moments of beauty. Let me introduce you to the Haiku, a poetic form so precise, so incredibly challenging, that it would make most modern poets break into a cold sweat. Just 17 syllables. 17. That's all a poet had to tell an entire story, capture an entire emotion, paint an entire world. The most legendary of these poet warriors was Matsuo Basho. Picture this: a man trained in the art of war, who one day decides to put down his sword and pick up a pen. Not just any pen, a brush that would become more powerful than any weapon he'd ever wielded. Basho didn't just write poetry. He revolutionized it. He transformed the haiku from a playful court game into a profound art form that could capture the most delicate whispers of human experience. Imagine a warrior who could describe the fall of a single leaf with more emotion than most people could describe an entire battle. These samurai poets lived by a profound philosophy. For them, art wasn't separate from war. It was an extension of the same discipline. The same focus that allowed them to master the sword also allowed them to master the brush. The same precision that made them deadly in battle made their poetry cut straight to the human heart. Think about that for a moment. In a world of pure survival, these warriors found time to create beauty. They understood something profound, that true strength isn't just about destroying, it's about creating. That true wisdom comes from seeing the world not just as a battlefield, but as a canvas. A samurai's poem could be as sharp as his sword, as deep as his honor, as fleeting as a moment of peace in a world of constant conflict. They could capture the entire universe in 17 syllables, a droplet of water, a falling leaf, a moment of silence between breaths. So here's a question for you. Could you tell an entire story in just 17 syllables? Could you find beauty in the midst of chaos? Because that's what these warrior poets did every single day. The samurai were more than warriors. They were living poetry, each breath a verse, each action a stanza in the epic poem of feudal Japan. Forget everything you think you know about feudal Japan. Beyond the polished armor of samurai and the elegant courts of shoguns, there was a world of darkness, rebellion, and untold stories waiting to be revealed. While samurai stood proudly in their gleaming armor, another group moved through the world like ghosts, the ninjas. These weren't the cartoonish characters from Hollywood movies. These were the most sophisticated spies and warriors in human history. Masters of disguise, manipulation, and survival, ninjas were the ultimate shadows of feudal Japan. Imagine a world so controlled, so oppressive, that the only way to fight back was to become invisible. Ninjas weren't just fighters, they were living weapons. Trained from childhood, they could become anyone, infiltrate anything. A farmer one moment, a deadly assassin the next. They were the ultimate survivors in a world that showed no mercy. But the ninjas were just one part of a much darker story. Beneath the surface of this seemingly ordered society, a volcano of rage was building. The peasants, those forgotten souls crushed under the weight of impossible taxes and brutal rule, were reaching a breaking point. Enter the Shimabara Rebellion, a moment so tragic, so powerful, that it would shake the foundations of Japanese society. 37,000 people. Let that number sink in. 37,000 men, women and children who dared to stand up against oppression, who refused to abandon their Christian faith in the face of absolute persecution. These weren't just rebels, these were martyrs, people so committed to their beliefs that they would rather die fighting than live on their knees. The Shogunate's response was brutal beyond imagination. The entire rebellion was crushed with a violence that would become legendary, a massacre that would send shockwaves through Japanese history. This is the Japan they don't tell you about in history books. A world where survival meant more than honor, where the line between hero and villain was so thin you could slice it with a samurai's blade. The peasants knew something the nobles never understood. True power doesn't come from a title or a sword. It comes from the unbreakable spirit of people who refuse to be silenced. So here's a question for you. In a world of absolute power, where would you stand? With the samurai? With the ninjas? Or with the peasants fighting for their very right to exist? Feudal Japan wasn't just a time of warriors and nobles. It was a crucible of human spirit where ordinary people became legends, and the shadows held more truth than the light. We've journeyed through a world that defies simple explanation. Feudal Japan wasn't just a chapter in history books. It was a living, breathing paradox, brutal yet beautiful, rigid yet poetic. A civilization that could produce the most lethal warriors in human history and the most delicate poets in the same breath. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a world where honor meant everything, where a single moment could define your entire existence, where the line between life and death was as thin as a samurai's blade. This wasn't just a time. This was a state of mind. The samurai weren't just warriors, they were philosophers, artists, guardians of a code so powerful that it continues to echo through history. Their legacy isn't confined to dusty history books or Hollywood movies. It lives and breathes in the modern Japanese spirit, a commitment to discipline, to excellence, to something greater than oneself. Look around you today. Can you see the echoes of the samurai? The Japanese work ethic, the commitment to perfection, the ability to find beauty in discipline. These aren't just cultural traits, they're the living DNA of a civilization forged in the fires of feudal struggles. The Shoguns taught us about true power, not the power that comes from violence, but the power that comes from strategy, from understanding, from seeing the world not as it is, but as it could be. The ninjas showed us that survival is an art form, that sometimes the most powerful weapon is the ability to adapt, to become invisible, to understand the world's deepest shadows. And the poets, oh, the poets, they reminded us that true strength isn't about destruction. It's about creation, about capturing the entire universe in a single breath, a single moment, a single line of poetry. So here's my challenge to you. Will you carry a piece of the samurai spirit with you? Will you live with the kind of honor that doesn't bend, that doesn't break? If this journey through feudal Japan has moved you, if it has sparked something inside you, then do something about it. Like this video, share it with friends who love history, subscribe to the Medieval Archives and dive deeper into the stories that shaped our world. And until our next adventure, may your honor be as unbreakable as a samurai's blade, as enduring as the spirit of Japan itself. The story continues, always.